Early Buddhist teaching, the middle position in theory and practice, written by Karunadasa, designed by Kainji and Nyami. Chapter 2. The Pride of Buddhism. A critical response to the boundary opposition between two worldviews. The Buddha often referred to the boundary opposition between two worldviews and see his own teaching as one of that is equally right from both of them. Thus, addressing Kisana, the Buddha says, this one Kisana for the most part depends upon a duty upon the nation of existence and the notion of non-existence. But for one who sees the origin of the world as its reality is which quarrels wisdom, there is no notion of non-existence in regard to the world. And for one who sees the cessation of the world as its reality is which quarrels wisdom, there is no notion of existence in regard to the world. Or is this Kisana? There is one extreme. Or does not exist, this is the second extreme. Without varying toward either of these extremes, the Tragra teach the Dharma by the middle. It is in fact against these two worldviews that Buddhist polemists are continually direct, and it is by demolishing them that Buddhism seeks to construct its own view of the world. This should explain why more Buddhist teachings are present in such a way as to impose themselves all to follow as a necessary control from all circumstances of the two theoretical views of existence and non-existence. This particular context is sometimes clearly stated and sometimes taken from Karang. It is within the framework of the Buddhist features of these two worldviews, therefore, that we need to understand not only the part of Buddhism but also the significance of its basis doctrine. These two theoretical views of existence and non-existence, it may be noted here, are sometimes present as the view of being Bhava deity and the view of non-being Vibhava deity, but more often as eternalism, Sastavada, and annihilation, Uttedavada, respectively. What exactly does Buddhism mean by the two views? More importantly, why does it see it as a critical response to the Hindi opposition? For this purpose, we need to examine unless in pair or line the religious and philosophical background against which Buddhism arose. The prevalent mood of the time is in fact very well reflected in the Buddhist discourses themselves. The very first discourse in the entire Sutta Pitaka or the Pali Canon, known as the all-embracing net or view, is an approach. From the Buddhist perspective, of some 62 religious and philosophical views which are said to represent all possible theoretical speculation on the nature of the sex and the world. This is the only discourse through which the Buddha himself has been subverted, among which one is the incomparable victory in the battle against theoretical view. All these theoretical views, despite their, their wide variety, can be divided into three main groups. The first group includes religious beliefs. The second, materialist theories that arose in direct opposition to religion. And the third, many forms of sculpture that arose as a religious against both religious beliefs and materialist theory. As to religion, there were two main movements. One is Jainism and the other Shamanism. Jainism was a linear development of the ancient Vedic thought. It embraced both traditional religious views as well as elite doctrine confined to a few. Shamanism, on the other hand, embraced a vast spectrum of religious teaching and practice, and they all seem to have arisen either in isolation from or in direct opposition of Brahmanism. In Brahmanism, the trend was more towards theism, monism, and authority. authority. In Shamanism, it was more toward non-theism, pluralism, and authority. There was, however, one basic idea which was commonly accepted by all religions belonging to both Brahmanism and Shamanism. This basic idea, as present in the Buddhist discourse, is as follows: the self is one thing and the body other. Inya, Jiva, Inya, Sadida. This view assumes a rooted return to basic principles, one spiritual and the other material. A permanent metaphysical set on the one hand, and the temporary physical body on the other. Accordingly, one true action is to be found not in the perceptible physical body, but in the permanent metaphysical set. However, this view came to be described in the Buddhist discourse as eternalism, Sasana Era, or the eternalist theory of the self. Latter core is the theory of the metaphysical self, while noting at the same time that all religions and philosophy, both past and present, that surprise through its area. From the Buddhist perspective, different versions of eternalism. The theoretical view of annihilation arose in direct opposition to all religion. It took its stand on the epistemological grounds that sense compensation was the only base mean of knowledge, and therefore it questioned the validity of the theoretical and metaphysical theories which did not come within the ambit of the experience. As such as annihilation rejects the religious version of the self and introduces its own version of it. As present in the Buddhist discourse, it is as follows: the self is the same as the body, then jiva, then sadida. Here, the emphasis is not on the duality but on the identity of the self and the physical body. For annihilation, therefore, the self is something material and produced of the four primary elements of matter. Accordingly, one is true essence is to be found, not in an It is metaphysical principle, but in the empirically observable physical body. If the set and the physical body are identical, it logically and naturally follows that at that, with the bracket of the body, the set to come to annihilation with no possibility for the post-modern survivor. This is why this theory of the set came to be described in the Buddhist discourses as annihilation, or the annihilation theory of the self. Lacan called it the theory of the physical self, while noting at the same time that all materialist ideology, both past and present, describe to its era from the Buddhist perspective different versions of annihilation. The first example of philosopher who expounded materialism during the time of the Buddha was Ajita Kesa Kampila. In his view, this human being is with at all the four great elements of matter. When he died, the element in his return and replace relates to the earth, the fluid to the water, the heat to the fire, the windy to the air, and his faculty pass into space. For beer, with the beer as its head, take his dead body away. Say that reach the banyan ground meets outer pot eulogy, but there his bones are released and his offering and in ash. It is a doctrine of four. This thought or is it is an empty line, mere idea thought. When man says there is prophet theory, foolish and wise alike. On the dissolution of the body are carrot annihilate and after that there is no materialization as assumed by some rejects what is called Atavada or the belief in a thorough soul. Generally speaking, this may be true. Nonetheless, from the Buddhist perspective, this assertion is not tenable. According to Buddhist understanding of the set theory and kind of energy, whether it is material, mental, or spiritual, can become a sort of set identity atma. It is become an object of set appropriation. This process of set appropriation is said to manifest in three ways. This is mine, eaten mama. This I am, is so how much me, and this myself is so me atta. As materialism takes the physical body to be an object of set appropriation to that extent, it is also a validity of the set or soul theory. One should then contest that what the materialist appropriate as the set or soul is not a metaphysical identity find them empirically observable. Appreciate physical body. In the context of Buddhist teaching, however, what material is not the permanent or impermanent, or the object of such appropriation, but the very fact of such appropriation. Accordingly, Buddhism sees both externalism and annihilation as two versions of the set or soul theory. The first is its metaphysical version and the second is physical version. Evolution, Mansell exclusion to which the Buddhists refer thus. When there are these two views, the view of being, eternalism, and the view of non-being, annihilatism, any recluse or Brahmin who relies on the view of being, whereas the view of being, accept the view of being, are opposed to the view of non-being. Any recluse or Brahmin who rely on the view of non-being, whereas the view of non-being, accept the view of non-being, are opposed to the view of being. There is a close connection between spiritual eternalism and the practice of self-modification. The plurality between two principles, one spiritual and the other physical, infers and mutual conflict between the two. Between the soul and the body, it is the soul that is in bondage. For freedom is our journey is the gravitational force of the body to redeem the soul and ensure its perpetuation in a state of internal bliss is necessary. Therefore, to modify that flesh, it is this idea that seen to be the rationale for us essentially and self-denial. What Buddhism calls the practice of self-modification Atta Kilamata Yoga. It is very likely that it was this belief that the body is a bondage to the self that lead to many for all ascetics Fridays ruin the time of the Buddha, aka point word Jainism, which arose right attended to liberate the soul. As a practice could assume varying degree of honesty and visibility depending on how each reaches the relationship between the soul and the physical body is thought to be defined. Nevertheless, the duality principle on which the eternalist view is based logically leads to the justification of ascetic practice as a means to separation. On the other hand, the materialist portion of the source or society naturally falls toward the opposite direction. What Buddhism calls the practice of sensual ontology, kamasukhalika yoga, as materialism believes in the identity of the such soul and the physical body, it seems no reason why one should issue embracing pleasure for the sake of an illicit bliss in a devout future. It is very likely that it was the pluralism or intellectual thought into spiritual eternalism and material annihilatism that paves the way for the vital section. Second is was to know one uniform intellectual movement as is embraced in number of schools. A practical example of a third philosopher who lived during the time of the Buddha was Satsaya Pilata Buddha. His position was that he could rationally argue for or against any spirituality theory, a theory returning to post-mortem survival, for instance, where one is not sure. The Elysian attitude is to assert the judgment. In the ideal context, however, segregation does not necessarily mean a purely intellectual existence. There is evidence to suggest that some does assumption on the ground that knowledge was not only impossible but also a danger to moral development and civilization. If the progression of intellectual thought into the two ideology preach the way for the viral circulation. It very likely thus it lead to the image of Buddhism as well. In final fact, there is very much suggested by the Buddhist first Samo, known as the sitting on motion of the we of the Dharma, it being there. Man, there are these two extremes which should not be practiced by one who has gone for. One is resistance to sensual pleasure, which is low, false, sexualized, and indoor, and leading to no good. The other is addiction to self modification, which is painful, indoors, and leading to no good. Now, man, without undertaking entire of these two extremes, there is a middle way, fully awake to find the Tathagata, making for version, making for knowledge, which contributes the clinging to super knowledge to awaken to nirvana. And what? Man, is that middle way? It is this noble effort done first is that there is to say right view, right intention, right speed, right action, right moral or living, right universe, right mindfulness, and right concentration. It will be seen that the two extremist practices referred to by the Buddhists in this discourse are the practical manifestation or eternalism and annihilation. If the Buddha's path to emancipation is called the middle path. It is because it sees itself equal and rise from both of them. From the Buddhist perspective, middleness does not mean moderation or comparison between the two extremes. Compromise, compromise between the two extremes, as defined by the Buddha himself, it means without entertaining either of the two extremes who Upo Idam Anupa Gamma. Avoiding all the two extremist practice also means the avoidance of both idealism and annihilations, which serve as their theoretical background. As we shall see, it is throughout the Buddhist doctrine and divine revelation the Buddhists avoid both spiritual eternalism and materialist annihilations. Therefore, divine rising came to be rightly introduced as the doctrine by the middle. This, in the early Buddhist discourses, the term middle came to be used in two different contexts. Middle ways to me, the Noble Eightfold Fast, and middle doctrine to me, divine rising, both its theory and practice. Therefore, Buddhism follows a middle position. The use of the term middle in this towards seeing brain into for the intellectual manners in which Buddhism arose. A middle position becomes meaningful only in the context of two extremes, as we had noted. The fear or extreme in relation to which Buddhism speaks of a middle position privileged in pre-Buddhist and India. This fact should show how the Buddhist religions and philosophical views serve as a background to the Buddhist part of Buddhism. However, Buddhism arose not as a interlinear progression or either spiritual eternalism or materialist annihilation. Rather, it arose as a critical response to the boundaries of existence. It will be noted that three of these was used by the Buddha in assigning sensual intelligence, namely Infrosi, Hina, Rusty, Dharma, and Profan Uttodana are supposedly advanced in his assignment or self-modification. The implication seems to be that although substitute eternalism does not lead to their right goal, nevertheless it does not lead to their craft or their moralized. Substitute eternalism is no superbase or their moral foundation or human society. It recognizes a spiritual soul in the human being and in so doing is also recognized moral prostration in final fact. According to the Buddhist assumption, all religions are different from or Kamawada, since they all advocate the supremacy of the moral life. For this very reason, as we shall see in the future chapter, the Buddha does not say that any of these religions that come under idealism are necessarily false. What he says instead is that they are not satisfactory nature tika. On the other hand, theoretical materialism encourages a pattern of life which takes gratification in sensuality as the ultimate purpose of life. It trades for granted our freedom is entirely due to origin, circumstance, Adesa Samopana, which is friendly to the conclusion that we are not morally responsible for which for what we during our temporary searching in this world. Therefore, Hinduism materialism is evaluated by the Buddhists as a false view, Maya deity, for it does not provide a proper foundation for the practice of any religious, not necessarily Buddhism alone. Evaluation the two extremes in this way, as the Buddha said in other discourses, is neither to disregard the two practice them, nor to extol those who avoid them. This present and extolling occur only when one expresses one's own view which person in mind. When one teaches only the Dhamma, one avoids any reference to person. Therefore, as the Buddha said, what the apostle calls was me, in brief, is this. The possibility of either extreme does not lead to the right good and is therefore not the right way. The fighting of the middle path lead to the right goals and is therefore the right way. The Buddha biography is said to deny the mutual conflict between the two fighting of sensual intelligence and self-modification. Is the Buddha to be realized or luxury as a royal prince exemplifying one extreme. His life as an ascending practicing Australian exemplifying the other. His attainment of enlightenment by giving at both extremes shows the efficacy of the middle fast for deliverance from all suffering. Early Buddhism practices or theoretical view, it may be noted here. Take into consideration that physical philosophical motivation as well. The matter disposition which serves as the causes fatal. The idea behind this is that our desire and expression had an effect on what we choose to be pleased in. According to the Buddhist diagnosis of the psychology of eternalism, the belief in eternalism is due to craving for being, power, dana. The craving for the eternalization of the self, the desire to perpetuate individuality into eternity. As for the Buddhists, diagnosis of the psychology of annihilation. The belief in a temporary self is due to craving for non-being, vivaldana. The desire for complete annihilation at death. If the former is due to craving for eternal life, the latter is due to craving for eternal death. Since materialist annihilation rejects the first possibility of post-modern survival, as it tends to encourage a person to live a life without a sense of moral responsibility. Therefore, it finds pos- any prospect or after death's existence as it implies the possibility of moral accountability. It is this psychological resistance on the part of that who believe in materialism that leads to the desire to be completely annihilated at death. Thus, the material conflict between the spiritual and materialist theory represents not only the material conflict between two fragile ideologies but also the human mind association between two distinct desires. The one-side view may also suffer from emotional response expressed of their vicious attitude or to life. They may reflect the mood of optimism and pessimism, hopes and desire and despair, the wish to feel secure throughout metaphysical sport, or the desire to live without anything as a materially concept universe. The theoretical view of eternalism or annihilation held by an individual may well change during his lifetime, together with the corresponding mood or emotional needs. Pranave Nyanaponika Theta. Our intellectual needs also has an effect on the privilege and provocation. There is also an intellectual rules. The speculative and theorization, prosperity of the mind, creating, uh, creating thinkers, people of the theorization type data study in Buddhist psychology are found to create very elaborate psychological systems in which great analogy they fight on against each other. The fear of consensual opposition, the great certification that gives to these innate in such as thought, construction, feature, uh, reinforce the urge to them, Branive Nyanaponika Tira. A Buddhism dissociates itself from spiritual eternalism. This means that it does not recognize some spiritual substance within art which it relates as to transcended reality. It really does serve as the ultimate ground or existence. Is the soul or the self. It is in the situation that connects the individual existence to a profound higher metaphysical reality. Since Buddhism does not recognize the soul idea, the notion of a higher metaphysical reality finds no place in Buddhist teaching. It's only the vast or sensory experience that Buddhism recognizes that through the world that we experience through our system faculty. This is perhaps where Buddhism found company from all regions that can under idealism that reaches that believe in it in moral source and a higher reality. Whether this higher reality is called God is in a personal sense or Godhead in a impersonal sense. If Buddhism dissociates itself from materialist analysis, this means that from the Buddhist perspective, the human personality is not a pure produce or matter. It is an enterprise and an interconnected process of physical phenomenon that does not have a property beginning. Adesa Samopana, Node and Aras and then Ochida. In common with all other religions, Buddhists to recognize superways and the validity of their moral order, karma, niyama. It is in fact the belief in a hereafter in whatever way, whichever ways it is interpreted in each religion, and the recognition of the moral order that serves as the ending factor of the religion. In conclusion, this chapter on the value of the Buddhism as meditation is interesting to note here that the theme may assume a geographical dimension as well. As is well known, Buddhists arose in what they call the middle region, Michima Delta, in North India and not in a red region, Michima Desa, who could even add a cosmological dimension to the middle in the healthcare of the Buddhist cosmos. We humans are like a middle class. About us are the dynasties of the eternalists, what who are all the time embraced in their own different pleasure. Below earth are the lower level of living beings who are true Enoch and all the time encroach in attending to their elementary need to food, elementary need of food and shelter. So it is only we humans who have the salary, atmosphere, and the necessary wherewith to follow the teaching of the Buddha. Only we humans who can thus realize that final good or Buddhism. It is not surprising, therefore, that as the Buddhist himself said, the heavenly being themselves fancy that to be born as human being is to go to heaven. Manosato ko bhikkhve devana sukati kama sakata. For Buddhism, the true heaven is not earth above, but here below in this tertiary world or human being. Chapter 3 Divine Rising. The definition of divine rising. Divine rising, as we know in this preceding chapter, is called the doctrine by the middle. It is transcend the binary opposition between spiritual idealism and materialist idealism. The opposite structure form of this doctrine, as defined by the Buddha, is as follows. The being present that come to be, on this rising that arise. This being absent that does not come to be, on this ceasing that cease. This definition shows that whatever arises is arising in dependent on condition. Whatever is ceasing because of the ceasing of the those conditions which made it arise. It gives us a clear idea of the nature of the relation that sustains between the cause and the effect. The effect. If we call the cause and the effect A and B representatively, then it is not right to say that B comes from A or that B is an average state of A. It is was so, then the language should have changed from this being present that can to be to from this that can to be. Divine rising, in other words, is not some kind of evolutionary change, an idea mainly associated with Samarkand psychology. According to the Samarkand philosophy, the effects remain in the case in it latent and manifest form or become accumulates as the result of evolutionary process, the core Myanmar. That for the Samkhya, that cause that causes operation consists in within its manifest our avivavata with the remain and manifest the Vavata as a matter of fact. Parivartas in the sense of evolution is never used either in the Pali discourse or in the Theravada Buddhist exegesis in order to explain divine rising. It is God true that the theme occur in other contexts, yet it is cosmically assumed in context where divine rising is explained. Interestingly enough, the theme used in the Buddhist text in describing the notion of change is to Trinad but Viparinama. Yeah. Hence, we have the odd recorded sentence. All conditioned phenomena are of the nature of Vibhavana, Viparinama. Another case in point is Viparinama Dukkha. Suffering that occur from uh, revivals or stagnation is the fiber form. Parinamata means to become staying wise. The fiber form or Viparinama means to become otherwise. In a thought body, what Viparinama brings into focus is to evolutionary change, but change with no unchanging sustain behind the process of change. The Theravada existed were well acquainted with the Samarkand theory, from which they went to dissociate the Buddhist teaching on divine rising. And they observed that, according to the Buddhism, the cause does not have the effect in this only. The effect is not in the case of the latent form. The case, the cause is not in the effect. The cause is not in the effect in its actualized form. And 3. The effect is empty of the cause. The cause is not animated in the effect. There are 3 reference with or rejecting the evolutionary theory or change. The same idea seems to be expressed by the use of the term non-reversionary apabhata to describe the relationship that sustains between the cause and the effect. Non-proportion means when the condition exists, there is the arising of the effect. When the condition does not exist, the effect ceases to be. The force of this statement is that nothing passes from the cause to the effect, or that the case does not reverse the effect. What this clearly amounts to is that divine arising is not based on the destiny between sustain and quality. According to Buddhism, the cause is neither a sustained entity nor a active agent. This means that Buddhism also keeps equally aligned from such a theory as the of the Buddhist Masama school of Indian philosophy. The latter causes theory is called the theory of force, Sakatiwada, because here the cause is defined as some kinds of force, Sakati, which bring about the effect. It is perhaps with this theory in mind that the folly exists, observe that the cause does not have its own solid own power, Visavati, to produce the effect. In it, cognitive process, for example, all mental phenomena such as attention and position take place naturally according to the principle or psychological order, said the Niyama. Each state in this condition being controlled by the immediately preceding one, which no sustained passing from one state to another. The scope of divine action. One question often arises in modern scholarship on Buddhism related to divine action is raised or application that is applied to the whole of animates and an animate's existence or to something less. From the Buddhist perspective, the answer to that question, why divine earn what Buddhism means by what loga and the all sapa. For this purpose, we would like to cite here two questions from this Pali discourses. The one they call is Karunadasa, in which sin is there a war, in which sin is there a concept of the war. So the question arises by Samadhi, the Buddhist reply, whatever samadhi there is the I, the visual form, the visual consciousness and the thing visible with the visual consciousness, they are lying the one, they are lying the concept of the world, whatever there is they are. Ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind, they are lying the one, they are lying the concept of the world. The Buddhist reply showed that there had to be three kinds of phenomena present for the world to be realized, namely the six faculty, the corresponding six sense objects, and the six representation consciousness. Since the entirely to our consciousness experience depending on the three sense base, the six sense faculties and the six sense objects. These three sense bases are also defined as the basic data or what consolidates the all or totally sapa. And what Bhikkhu is the all, the eye and form, the ear and sound, the nose and oral, the tongue and the taste, the body and the, the body and taste objects, the mind and mental phenomena. This is called the all, and there is no other all based this all. If anyone breakthrough should be that having reached this all, I shall make no other all, thus or be a mere empty was on this path. If he were questioned, he would not be able to reply and feature he or me with Bunkin for which reason? Because Pegut the ought not be within his dominance. Thus the Buddha does not deny the objective reality of the world. What he denies is that which transcends the burden of possible experience. In other words, for early Buddhism was me individual existence in relation to the eternal world. It is inferred only through the acuity of our physical and mental sense faculty that a world can be experienced and known at all. What is seen, heard, smells, tastes, and touched by the physical sense faculties are our period mental function, both conscious and unconscious. This is the world in which we live. It is precisely this world, the world as given in experience, comprising both knowledge and know in the widest sense. The Buddhism always into surface factors such as the five aggregate, the 12 synphase, and the 18 element of content. It is also please, this what the Buddhist seek to explain on the visit is rotary or Nirvana rising. Nirvana rising midday at the midday rotation. Nirvana rising as already explained is present at the midday rotation because it expresses clear or the menstrual conflict between spiritual eternalism and material annihilation. These two theoretical views, as known above, are also called the view of being and the view of non-being, or the view of existence and the view of non-existence, respectively. Now the two mutually exclusive views are or exists Sapa Ati and or does not exist Sapa Nati. The first view represents an eternal form of relation which assumes that everything exists absolutely, which the second position an extreme form of nihilism, which assumes that absolutely nothing exists. According to the divine rising, it is not a question of existing or non-existent, but divine rising. Then followed other prayer or view or are a unity, Sapa Ikata, or are a plurality, Sapa Bahuda. The first is to be understood as a monastic view, thus everything is reduced to common ground, some sort of sustain, whereas the second incorporates the opposite radicality pluralism view that the whole of existence is visible into a connection to distant eternalities, with no interconnection and interdependence. It is true that Buddhism always interviews existence into a number of factors, such as the five aggregates, the 12 sin-based, and the 80 elements of cognition. However, the factors thus obtained through analysis are not described indifferently arising, existing, at least since they arise independent on many other factors. The factors into which it is analyzed are centered according to the principle of the independent rising. Analysis wins no Superman by synthesis leads to realization. Instead, win no Superman by analysis lead to monism, which what one finds in Buddhism is confined use on both methods. This results in a psychological version which beautifully transcends the transcendent opposition between monism and pluralism. Another fair or theoretical view which divine transcends is self-causation, Sabha-kata, and eternal causation, Parakata. The first view consists as complete identity between the agent, doer, and the one who experiences it does something, and hence that experience is result. This is based on the recognition of the unchanging entity that persists throughout time. According to the second view, there is complete otherness between the agent doer and the one who experiences it does something, but the experience is result. When the Buddhist was at which all these alternatives is valid, the Buddha does not approve either because he teaches the doctrine by adopting the middle position. The Buddha's position is neither one of the complete oneself, one as absolutely identity, nor one of complete otherness, absolutely diversity. If at the first you say the same self identity does and the same self identity experience, this will result in a solution where the process of ruin and experiencing were not come to an end. That's the energy as was agent towards an experience where gas transfer in eternity, suffer ekada parity. On the other hand, as the second theory says, if someone does and someone else experience, this will result in a situation where the consequences of moral action return to complete annihilation, Ochera, Eden, Priti. The latter view forced to establish a cause correlation between the act and its consequences. From the Buddhist perspective, rising concept of absolute identity and absolute diversity cannot be justified to the dynamic stream or becoming power soda. A process of divine rising and stressing. At the we've Visuddhimagga, at the Visuddhimagga philosophy and what is stream or continuity there is neither identity nor otherness. For it there was absolute identity in its stream or continuity there will be no forming or cast from it. And yet if there were absolute otherness the cause would not be derived from the myth, and so too what all causality arises in strict determination and strict indetermination, reputation, another pair of mature exclusive position. The fact is of two kinds. One is theories determination, which says that everything is due to creation or the part of the God, Sava Isra Naimana Hidu. The other is karmic determination, which says that everything is due to past karma, Sava Obikata Hidu. In direct opposition to both is that in eternalization or the theory of creation organization, as we shall see in our chapter on the theory of moral life. It is again throughout demonizing the Buddhism. He is equally aligned from both strict determination and strict indetermination. Demonizing also provides a middle position answer to the very natural question posed as to why a human being experience what he or she experience. It does it is used to set decision or external decision, or is it due to both or neither? From the body perspective, human experience, whatever it is pleasant or painful, is neither self-cause nor other cause, nor force cause, nor due to accident, circumstance, adesa, samobana. But it's all divine rising, padesa, samobana. Another aspect of divine rising at the middle doctrine can be seen in relation to the two cosmological theories which say to experience the absolute beginning of the universe. Obata Kamta. Along with the ultimate direction, it is hidden for Apna Kapta. According to the Buddha's no temporary beginning of the universe is conceivability. For Buddhism, there was the question leading to the unconscious cause and the cosmotion of the universe in this ultimate density do not arise. Buddhism concentrate not on the origin or and on the aura, but on the aura itself. As yet, the purpose of divine rising is not to explain how it is begun, nor to explain how it is finally end, but to show how things occur. The application of divine horizon. we has already clarified the structured principle of dependency in the abstract. As to its concerned application, we can distinguish between two types. One is general and the other special. The general application can be seen in such an instance where causes expression are given for the arising of consciousness. The sequence of the application of dependent arising, we has already clarified the structured principle of dependent arising in the abstract. As to its concrete application, we can distinguish between two types. One is general and the other special. The general application can be seen in such an instance where causes explanation are given for the arising of consciousness, the sequence of the cognitive process, the operation of the moral aura, and so on. Demonization has also been used to understand the gradual evolution of society and the origin of social disorder, which, from the Buddhist perspective, seen ultimately from craving as the individual suffering. We shall have the occasion to estimate this causal explanation whether appropriate in the chapters that follow. It is on this special application or dependent that we propose to focus here. This can be seen in a 12-factor formula, whose purpose is to explain the causal structure of individual existence. In this semester dimension, as already noted, for various individual existence, me the causality origin five aggregates or grasping. Therefore, we can also say that the purpose of the 12-factor formula is to explain the dependent rising of the five aggregates or grasping. The five aggregates or grasping are not five fifties identities, rather they are constantly changing five aspects of individual existence, which always interacts with the eternal world. It is not for us to say that they exist, nor is for us to say that they do not exist. What is differently rising is not refined either by weight or existence adahida or by way or non-existence natita. There is only a cosmos of arising and cessation. This 12-factor formula or regeneration with ignorant awareness as condition are evolutionary constitution sankara, which evolutionary constitution as condition as consciousness vijnana, which consciousness as condition is materiality nama and rupa, with materiality and materiality as condition in the sit for sense based Salayana, with the sin for some base as condition is contest pasa. With contest as contest is feeling vedana. With feeling as condition as craving dana. With craving is condition is clinging upadana. With clinging is condition as becoming bhava. With become as condition in is part dati. With is condition are again agents and death, race, limitation, pain, sorrows, and despair, jati, marana, shoka, parideva, dukkha, domanassa, upayasa. In understanding this differently arising process, which is all crucial, important to Remember here is that at the Buddha says the five aggregates or grasping are not separates for all one another, although of course they can be distinguished. Consider in this context, what this reality means is that at every stage of the concept process, the five aggregates or grasping or unless the main controls are present, then the question arises as to why at each stage only one pada is mentioned as the condition and only one pada is mentioned as what is condition. Here, the Shawara body exists came to our sport in this condition. It made three main observations. Divine rising means the rising or effect evenly in divine or congestion or condition. Arising me arising together and equally, not eventually and subsequently. If only one further is mentioned as that condition for another is in order to single out the chief condition. More many conditions are related to the most important condition pattern among many other condition patterns. With these three observations amount to is that from a plurality or condition arise a plurality or condition pattern. Said otherwise, nothing arises from nothing. Nothing arises from a single condition. Nothing arises as a single condition pattern. It's always the case that from or maturity or condition arises a maturity or condition pattern. Therefore, strictly speaking, dependent means co-dependent, dependent on many factors, and rising means co-arising, arising together with many other factors. These observations, which we cite from the Buddhist usage, are fully in line with the above mentioned saying of the Buddha, namely that the five decades or grasping are never separable one from another, and that therefore they all occur together, therefore they ever stage on the process of divine rising or the five decades or grasping are present. Let us take at an example, ignorance which is least path can ignorance exist in blatant isolation from the five decades or grasping. For ignorance to exist, there must be an individual being, which according to the Buddhism is the five decades or grasping. Therefore, when ignorance functions as a condition, it is one condition among many other conditions. Yeah, many other conditions meet the five decades or grasping without cognition. Ignorance is only ignorance is mentioned that this at that Buddhist exorcist is in order to single out the chief condition among a collection of conditions. In the same way, when evolutionary constitution arises with ignorance at the time condition, there are many other factors that rise together with them, namely all the five degrees or grasping or excluding evolutionary constitution. If only evolutionary constitution are mentioned, this as the body is in order to release the more important condition for the more collective or collection or collection further. This situation it might be emphasized here is true for all other states in the 12 pattern process or divine rising. What we have here, what we has refined about provides an answer to an important question raised in modern scholarship on this subject is on this subject. The question concerns materiality and materiality, nama and dukkha, which is the third condition factor in the above mentioned list of 12 factors. Materiality is the compound mentality and materiality. Denote five mental patterns: with feelings, perception, relation, sensory, context, and mental reference. Now, the question is this: This mentality includes, among others, further both sensuality, context, and feelings. Why are sensory, context, and feelings mentioned again in this sequence? It will be noted that both sensory, context, and feelings are mentioned again at the fourth and the fifth condition further. The reflection is certainly not to treat it as a mistake, factual or otherwise. It is perfectly in conformity with what we have observed above. That is, that at every stage of the process, all the five ligates or grasping are present. What we need to remember here is that when scenarios context arise, it cannot arise as a single factor. It necessarily arises together with all the five ligates or grasping, excluding sensory context. If only sensory context is mentioned, that is in order to relate the most important condition factor among a collection of condition factor. The same solution is true of feeling as well. Now we are in a better position of understanding the 12 factors involved in the process of generalizing. The Buddha said, in the belief that the person who acts in the same as the person who experiences. One possesses eternalism in the belief that the person who acts is not the same as the person who experiences. One possesses materialism without varying toward either of these eternally extreme the Tragra. Without these extremes, the Tragra teach the doctrine by the mirror which ignorant avijja as condition evolutionary constitution sankara tend to be here. Ignorance means the ignorance of the four truths. The first of suffering is case is creation and the way leading to its creation. It is no knowingness or things as they accurately arise. Accurately are. Ignorance of the four truths means that a person acts like a robot, not knowing what reality he is, and what his true freedom is. True ignorance is itself first. It's not the first cause. The first beginning of ignorance is not know, such that we may say, before this there was no ignorance, at this point there arose ignorance. However, this ignorance is that is causally condition can be known adasa pana ninyayati adasa avijja. The purpose of the concept process as known earlier is not to explain the absolute origin of the samsara process, nor to explain the ultimate end which it is destined in. After answering the 12 pattern concept process, the Buddha says, all you learn, knowing and seeing that proper it run behind. Proper another things or pursuit is run over the final another things. After ignorance can relational activity, thus singularity, morality, ocean, punya, morally and ocean, apunya and unshakable, anisana, relational with concept karma, it will be seen that even wholesome actions are also motivated by ignorance, for all karmic activities are due to self-interest or self-expression. They are not sponsored at all. Wholesomeness, which volitional activity as condition arise consciousness vijnana. That reference is to relinking or revert consciousness in the subsequent part. It is the initial consciousness that arises at the moment of conception, since it arises as a tesoro karma, is karmically intermediate, for it is not motivated by the three truths or moral evil or the three truths or moral wholesomeness. Similarly, said with the arising of the consciousness, there arise mentally, materially, nama and rupa. The latter denote five mental factors and the origin matter that enters into the composition of individual being. Both consciousness and materiality are reversely referred in the sense which while the former is dependent on the latter. The latter too is dependent. The latter is true. The right two is independent on the former at one and the same time. It will thus be seen that even at the moment of conception, the main conflict of the five aggregates or thinking are there. For consciousness and mentality and materiality, represent the visit data of the five aggregates or thinking on the spiritual nature return consciousness and materiality, which has more to say in our chapter on the analysis of mind, which mentality and materiality faces physical phenomena as condition, right? The sin base, the eye, ear, nose, hands, body, and mind, for the physical phenomena in materiality and mentality had latent potential to graduate brain about the sense photosensory appreciation with the sense and face as condition arise sensory contact factor. Sensory contact is defined at the union of the three, that union between the sense organ, the sense object, and the sensory consciousness. With sensory contact as condition arise feeling vedana. It is the feeling that experience an object and unpleasant, as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutrality. Which feeling as condition arise craving dana. Craving is threefold. Craving for sensual satisfaction, kama dana. Craving for existence, bhava dana. Craving for non-existence, vibhava dana. We craving as condition arise for kinship or clinging. Kind of clinging. The first is clinging to some pleasure, which is interpret from the craving, from a craving. The second is clinging to view, metaphysical view as to neutrality of the sun, such and the world. The third is clinging to rights and observance in the belief that they lead to emancipation from suffering. The fourth is clinging to the notion of the self. It will be note that craving is the condition not only for clinging to some pleasure but also for clinging to view as metaphysical view. If metaphysical view be view or relating to the apathy or rising and observation, see the belief in it individualized identity, the four kinds of grasping induce, motivates action, and thus beacon recognition for existence, since revert into one of the three planes of existence is brought about by karma. In the Buddhist realistic existence is distinguished into two, namely karma existence, karma bhava, and rebirth existence, vibhava, uh, upati, upapati bhava. Karmic existence is karma activity of the previous life that seen as a condition for the succeeding birth jadi. It is the active process of existence becoming. Without existence is passed into one of the three planes of existence. recognized in Buddhist cosmology. The simple sphere, the fine material sphere, and the immaterial sphere. This is the passive process of existence becoming finally with what as condition there arise, decay, jati, jata, death, sorrows, limitation, pain, risk, and despair. As no avoid among the 12 causal factors, only two are recoverably defined, namely consciousness, vijnana on the other hand, and materiality, nama and rupa on the other. This shows that it is only reciprocal interplay between consciousness and materiality, that the whole summed up process of birth and death results. In this sense, their menstrual divine considered the inadequate ground of samsara existence. Restitution remains the same without the divinely rising spirit as straight back to the remote past or face forward to the distant future. The psychological implication of this situation we shall discuss in our chapter on the nature or mind.
Chapter 4 Non-Self and Death Purities ourselves. The notion of the self has many forms, such as the monastic form found in the Upanishad, the pluralist form as evident by Samakya and Jinisin, along with this materialist form found in Uttara. Despite these many permutations, the notion of the self can be subsumed under two main hidden substituent metaphysical set and the analysis physical set. The first version is based on the duty principle, that duty between the self and the body, and the second on the identity principle, the identity of the self and the body. The Buddhist idea of non-self is based on an idea that or both person. Accordingly, Buddhism does not admit either an evident metaphysical set or its terminology physical set in the circumstance complex of the infinite individuality. However, scholars which a related orientation along with those who believe in a differentiate philosophies based on the both transcendent unity of all religion think otherwise. In the view, Buddhism believes in a set which set capitalized there is no identicate with any other component, counter, or this empirical individuality taken selectively or collectively, but with transcendence at broad level. This is what we had introduced in the title of this chapter, at that practice ourselves. Here we propose to discuss the early Buddhist teaching on non-self and to examine in the light of the ensuing discussion whether the later interpretation is tenable. Is the notion of non-self only for primitive reason? Certain modern writing on Buddhism given the impression that if the Buddhists reject the theory of the self, it was purely for a pragmatic reason, to provide a rational foundation for a such ethics. It is contend that if the self is not assumed, how can the possibility of non-profession and emancipation from suffering be explainable? The Buddhist answer to this question is thus: it is the very assertion of itself, both in its materialist and spiritual version, that makes both possibility and impossible. Phyllis is one holds the view that the set is identical with the body materialist annihilation. In that case, there can be not only lies, it one holds the view that the set is one thing and the body other, substitute eternalism. In that case, too, there can be no holy light, avoiding both extremes that perfect one teach the doctrine that lie in the middle. If the set is analogous with the physical body, absolute oneness, thus there is no possibility for the Friday or moral life. Why? If the physical body is the set, then the physical body will completely determine the behavior of the mind. On the other hand, if the set is different from the physical body, absolutely oneness, then the need for the Friday or moral life does not arise. For the set always remain in its transit purity. In this regard, the Buddha said that even if there want to be a pressure is as small as a fish or dust define change in the psychological personality of the human being, then practicing the higher life parameter satya won't be or no available. What is me is that there is no such as permanent part and that the higher light can successfully bring about a complete transformation of the human personality. What we need to remember here is that only when there is change, there is that possibility for changeability. If Buddhism denies both versions of the such notion, that this means that according to the Buddha, the human personality is something plastic and possible and therefore widable and amenable to change. It has the necessity, otherwise either to elevate itself to higher level of moral perfection or to descend down to the lower level of moral depravity. Strong individuality based on the such notion is not the same as the automatic thought, state or mind. The notion of non-self. The characteristic of non-self, anatta, is often present together with two other characteristics, namely impermanent nature and suffering dukkha. Taken together, these are the three hallmarks of the universal property of all that is sanctity. To persist permanent in impermanent, suspiciousness is unsuspicious and self-existent, non-self-existent. There is a repression or possession, a repression or thoughts, and a repression of the ideological perspectives. Fundamental to Buddhist teaching is the empathetic assertion of impermanence, whatever had the nature of rising, all that had the nature of ceasing. As one Buddhist discourse stressed, there is no moment, no instant, no factor of death when the river stops flowing. This is the symbol used to illustrate the eternal flow of happiness, thus unbroken continuity or change. At the first, logically but not chronically, of the three characteristics or substate existence, it is in fact impermanent, thus provide the rational basis for the other two characteristics. What is impermanent is suffering. Ya nature can be token. What is suffering is non-self. Yan token then anatta. The concept of non-self is a necessary quality of the first of suffering. The characteristic of non-self is sometimes directly derived from this beautiful characteristic of impermanence. It anyone regards the I seeing as the self, that does not hold. Polarizing and fashion with of the I is clear from experience with regards to that which rises and passes away. If anyone were to think mindset is arising and passing away, such as a thought, Hornby contribute find the person himself. Therefore, it does not hold to regard the I as the self. This, the I or seeing is proved to be necessary. The same goes for the other sense faculty. Let us take another example. Feeling, for instance, we construct the self. If it could be so considerable, then when a pleasant feeling given place to an unpleasant feeling, one who has to admit that his self has changed. If it has not vanquished completely. The two examples given above clearly demonstrate that it is from the variability premise or phenomenon that the principle of non-self is derived. Yet another aspect or what non-self means can be elicited from a debate between the Buddhists and Sasana on the idea of self. Sasana argues on the premise that just as any kind of seeds or vegetable grows and come to maturity depending on the art, whatever act a person does, whatever it is good or bad, depends entirely on the five aggregate khandha. He concludes, therefore, that the five aggregates constitute as an individual self. In response to this, the Buddha says, when you accept that the five aggregates continue yourself, have you power or over them, have you control over them, so that you can say, let my five aggregates be that, let my five aggregates be not that this. Sasana fails to get a satisfactory answer and admit that he was certainly mistaken in this matter. We find the same idea expressed in a number of other discourses in a slightly different form. It, for instance, the physical body could be considered as such. Then the physical body will not be subject to oppression. One should be able to say with practical result, let my physical body be like this, let not my physical body be like that. Because the physical body is non-self, therefore it is subject to oppression. If anything could be called my own self, then I should have full control over it, so that it believes in that way, in the way I want it to behave. If something is really my own, I should be able to exercise full mastery, full sovereignty over it. Otherwise, how can I call it my own? This is how Buddhists understand the idea of ownership or possession. Since we do not have full control over our possession, when something about happens to them, it is we who come to grace, so it is our possession that really upset us. In communicate goal, absence or control is defined as absence or own sway, or absence or own power, avisamvara, avisamvata. In the case of permanent that depend on a permanent condition, none among us can experience their own way, outweighs their own power. In final first, it is that meaning or non-self as absent or full control. That is more important from the final view of realizing nirvana, the final emancipation according to Buddhists. However, this meaning or nonsense does not appear to have got to attention in the later school or Buddhism to as well as in modern writing in Buddhism, but this may indicate as shift or emphasize from Buddhism as a Buddhism religion to Buddhism as a academic philosophy, where the such notion originate. The whole world or experience as Buddhism understand is comprised within the five aggregates: base, materiality, rupa, feeling, vedana, passion, senya, volitional, contemplation, sankhara, and consciousness, vijnana. Hey, that totally all our experience can be explained with reference to them. Therefore, if there were to be any kind of such notion, such as notion should originate only on the basis of the deep five aggregate taken selectively or collectively. They are the only ground for the origination or such as assertion, yet none of the aggregate can be so identified as such. Why? It is due to the fact that the case and condition for the rising or materiality and the other four aggregates are nonsense. So how can materiality and the other four aggregates which are brought into being by which is nonsense be the set? If, for example, someone assumes materiality the first aggregate to be the set, such as assertion could manifest in four ways. 1. Materiality is the same as the set. 2. The set possesses materiality. 3. Materiality is within the set. Or 4. The set is in materiality. Efficient elaboration of this fourfold manifestation of the set notion taken the following form. How does he see materiality as set? Yet, as it emerges for a like land, plane, and color as indicate that what the plane is, that the color is what the color is, that the plane is. How does he see such as process of materiality? Just as there one is he possess or shades such as that a man might say, this the tree, this the shade, the tree is one, the shadow another. But the tree is possessed of this shade in virtue of this shade. How does he see materiality in inside? Yes, if there were a sensor flower, such as in man might say that is the flower, that is the sun. The flower is one, the second another, but the sun is in this flower. How does he see set in maturity? Just as a young one placed in a case such as that a man might say, this is the gem, this is the case. The gem is one, the case is the case is another, but the gem is in the case. The same goes for the other four aggregates. There are in all 20 possible relations between the five aggregates and the aggregates. This is how Buddhism explains what is called the origin or the belief in its such entity. The Buddhist teaching on Nasa is intended as a remedy for the cessation of this belief. The belief in its such entity, the cessation of this belief is to be achieved through the opposition process. By negating each aggregate as a sub-entity so as to eliminate all possibility for the image of the sub-view, the final conclusion of this process of the negotiation is that none of these five aggregates that's made at the aggregate individuality can be identified as one author. Each aggregate is not the set, then can their combination provides as collective basis for the set notion. In this connection, what we need to remember here is that long Buddhism analyzes that living being into several aggregates. It does not say that they just learn together to form all individual, just as a random collection or race is not a role. The individual is the sum total of the five aggregates when they are strictly organized according to the principle of dependent rising, Vincha, Upadana, Kanda, Padecha, Dhammopala. It is dependent rising that ensures causal continuity and independent functioning. The individual is in first refined as the aggregation, Sankha, collection, Sampta, and coming together, Sambhavaya, of the five aggregates of clinging. What Buddhism denies is not the concept of the person, Pogala, but its sustained energy within the person. As such, Buddhism has no objection to the concept of person whole. If one person is understood not an entity distinct from the sum total of the properly organized five aggregates, nor as sustained and enduring in time, nor aggregate within the five aggregates. The person is the sum total of the five aggregates confined according to the principle of the divine rising, and which are constantly in a state of flow. What really matters here is not how one tries to understand the nature of the five aggregates in their combination. Rather, what really matters is the fact that even the combination is in a state of constant flow. What is in constant flow is not under one control and hence is non-self. Non-self from another perspective, since non-self means absence of interaction, reality and substantiation being. The idea of non-self comes into focus from another perspective, from the perspective of the Buddhist teaching on nutriment, or living being. The Buddha said, "Subsist on food, tapi sada aratitikam." Subsist on food. By food, Buddhism means not only what we eat and drink for the sustenance of our physical body, which is called morsel made food, Kablikara Ara, but also the other kind of, namely sensory, context, phasa, mental evolution, mano, chintitana, and consciousness, vijnana. As to sensory context, there are six kinds: eye contact, ear, nose contact, touch contact, body contact, and mind contact. It is throughout these six sensory contacts that our senses faculty frequent to food. Frequent of food. What is visible is food for the eye. What is available is food for the ear, and so on. If not for this kind of food, our sensory affairs will suffer separation and thereby not function at all. That the third kind of food, which is mental production, is the connected or motivating aspect. It is the more dynamic, indeed the way to list. The fourth kind of food, which is consciousness, has to be understood in the context of the samsara, this process, the cycle of birth and death. long consciousness does not recognize from but to bad. As we saw in the previous chapter, in function as a condition in the 12 factor formulas or dependent rising, it is mainly this factor that function as for nutriments for the sensitive dimension of individual existence. Individual existence thus turn out to be a process of nutriments, a process of elimination. It is keep going by 4 kinds of food. If there were a state such energy within the outside individuality, that it ought not be necessary to keep it going by 4 kinds of food. It is just like a burning fire, a dynamic process with no spirit energy in it. A fire cannot go on burning without being supplied by fuel. How does that notion emerge? As the Buddha says, the notion of the self does not occur to a young turned infant, lying from on its birth, such as infant has only a latent tendency to the self-view. The image of the self-view can, however, be traced to the cognitive process, the process through which we cognize simple objects in very cognizant act. An act consisting of a series of cognitive events. The latent tendency for the ego consciousness awakens and gradually solidifying, eventually becoming fully characterized as this final state called consensual propagation. When the ego consciousness has arisen, it cannot exist in a vacuum. It needs ontological support, it needs constant from or content. What we analytic oriented person does in this regard is identifying the ego consciousness which one or more of the pi aggregates into which individual existence is resolved. The process of identification taken the following form: this is mine, this I am, is so must be, this myself is so me at here. The first part is due to craving, dana, the second to conceit, mana, and the third to view, deity. Craving, conceit, and views are the 3 different aspects of the ego consciousness. In the above process of identification, this I am is the I conceit, is a mana, and this mindset is to be understood as the subview, adawara. The I conceit arises at a person free reflected level. As to its arising, we need to understand the difference between 2 cognitive functions, that's all receiving signal, that's one conserving vijnana. Whatever an analyzing person receives, he does also automatically conceive for the act of conceiving involved. And I am to what is received. The result in his perceptual experience becoming automatically destroyed because of the tendency involved in the act of conserving. Isn't there an I relationship and perspective to what is received? That relationship to what is received arises in one way: as analytical what is, as contained in it, as separate from it, as owning it as mine. On the other hand, The third view arises at its elementary reflective level, correction by the unconscious. Nonetheless, both these unconscious and the third view are corrected by craving. Both are true or the then Fitterden based the individual to the synthesis process. Only when a person enters the stress of the noble eightfold path, Sotapanna, that the self-view can do the end. On the other hand, that unconscious has such a effect over the analytic living being, thus a preset until one attains Nirvana. While the third notion passes. Although the self-view has a purely psychological organ, it can practice and perpetuate by many other factors. Among them is our disease craving that provide an emotional attachment to the belief in a prominence here. Some internalize this view. This is the war after death and shall be permanent, everlasting, eternal, no subject to change, unsure as long as eternity. Then he has a chakra or the chakra displays the true idea for the elimination of all standpoint for view. All dissension about myself, extension and underlying tendency for the stealing of all permission for the delinquency or essential or existence upasana for the exclusion of craving for finding out cessation extension. He thinks that so I shall be annihilated, so I shall be low, so I shall be no more than his sorrow and limit. Beating his breast, he wished and became distraught. Two kinds of acute patisana are distinguished by the Buddhists. One is the anguish due to absence or something external, Buddha asati. As for example, when we does not have the tangible material object that we want to have, the other form of argument is very much more subtle and handy. It is the argument due to absence or something within ijjata asa. It is this latter kind of anguish that a person pleased in his self-experience when he is told that there is no suggestion for the notion of an abundance set giving a person a sense of identity. Sexuality and certainty when this same person hears the true teaching that there is no set. He came to grace and experience and vanquish a sense of complete loss. Non-self and divine arising. The idea of non-self should not be understood in isolation from divine arising. If we take the idea of non-self separately and overemphasize it, the idea can lead to a form of reduction as a Buddhist man at the time of the Buddha, after listening to the teaching. After listening to the teaching on non-self thought. So, it seems materiality is non-self, nor are feeling, but in mental formation and consciousness. Then, what such was the action done by the non-self thought? He was afterwards reprimed by the Buddha for going the Buddha's teaching on divine arising due to his ignorance and craving. when we combine the idea of nonsense and divine rising. If we can clear that, what we are now has been conditioned by what we were in the past. The preceding movement conditioned the succeeding movement, and thus there is causally oral continuity to the whole process. At the moment of death, the quality of the less consciousness condition, the rising of the reward consciousness, nothing is carried over. Yet, depending on the less consciousness, arise the new consciousness, nonsense and emptiness. Both nonsense and divine rising combine to show how early Buddhists understand the notion of emptiness. When another asked the Buddha, Karunadasa, it is that empty is the world. Empty is the world. In which way? In what way? Karunadasa, it is that empty is the world. The Buddha said in reply, it is another because it is empty or such, and what belongs to such that it is such empty is the world. In the Sutta Nipada, we find the Buddha finding Moggadacha to see the world as empty, Thonyato Loco, our Awikeso, as no earlier for early Buddhism, what me, the world or experience, the world we experience, which our senses faculty, and it is recently this was thus early Buddhists resort into the 5 decades, the 12 sun phase and the 18 element of cognition. If the world is empty, then it logically and inevitably follows that the factor into which the world is analyzed are also empty. Empty and nonsense become mutually compatible expression. What is nonsense is empty, and likewise, what is empty is nonsense. At the Buddha's reply, show emptiness is not a separate characteristic, rather, it is another experience for nonsense, expression for nonsense. Therefore, from the early Buddhist perspective, we had the full liberty and restraining the well-known statement, all things are nonsense, Sapi Dhamma Anatta, as all things are empty, Sapi Dhamma Sunya. All things Sapi Dhamma embrace not only the condition, Sankara, prominence, but the anchoration Nibbana as well. That both the world or sensory experience and the anchoration reality that transcend it are empty. What this means is that the characteristic of nonsense or emptiness is more universal than even effeminate. So, throughout its Buddhist rejection or sustainability, the practice of ourselves. In the light of what has been discussed above, we need to examine now the issue of the overself. If there is such identity over and about the 5 decades, it does transcend the 5 decades taken selectively and collectively as far as early Buddhism is concerned. That question has no relevance. Buddhism is about the totally or prominent existence, prominential existence, and expression from it, emancipation from it, in such a way that it simply rule out the very necessity of raising that question. The being such as we have known at the beginning for the current chapter, the poll question is raised particularly by modern scholars with a varied orientation, while also by those who brought a potentiate philosophy based on the sport transcendent and unity of all regions. Their base assertion is that when the Buddha said that the first aggregates are necessary, this does not mean that there is no set. It only means that none of the five aggregates can be identified as our true set, because they are subject to impermanence and are a solo sovereign. The true set it is contained is beside the five aggregates and could be discovered only by transcending the fourth. America says is the fourth set, which is thus transcend its impermanence, subject to sovereign, and made by non-sustainability. The true set so discovered has the opposite three characteristics, namely permanent nature, happiness, sukha, and the first of being the true set, atta. It once suffered so run their argument. It is because of the extremes from his true set, and therefore, in the view, attainment of Nibbana means a positive return of the set to itself. One chronicle passive often cited by D to maintain this theory is the passive, where the undying philosopher Kosa at the Buddha, whatever the set exists or not, whether the set exists or not. In each case, the Buddha remains silent. This silence on the part of the Buddhists have been interpreted in two ways. According to some, it was because the Buddha does not want to shock a weak minded here by saying that there is no set. According to others, the logical conclusion from this would be that something is, though it is not the empirical set. In final fact, the correct position can be seen from the same discourse with the Buddha to Ananda as to why he decided to remain silent. It Ananda, we Musakoda as if there is that I have said there is that, then I should have been one of these who hold the doctrine of eternalism. But if I had replied there is no that, then I will have been one of these who hold the doctrine of annihilation, and it we also got that as if there is a I had replied there is a, or it had been in accordance with the knowledge that all things are without that, no law. If I had said there is no set. The planet Osagota all has become still more various thinking than this mindset exists before, and now it does not exist anymore. If any conclusion can be run from this, it is that Buddha does not subscribe to the theory of the self as recognized both in the eternalist and the annihilation analogy. Not that the Buddha believes in itself. What is more interesting is that some modern scholars who quote this dialogue between the Buddhas and Bodhisattva either by design or by accident bypass bypass the Buddha's own explanation or to another as to why he remained silent when Usapota writes the question whether the self exists or not. If the theory of the overself is valid, it writes the very important question why the Buddha was silent on this matter. The teaching of the Buddha is not an isolated doctrine confined to a select few. The Buddha himself said that he does not have the close path of the teacher. Then, theory of the overself also raises the equally important question why none of these schools of Buddhist thought belonging to the three traditions of the or Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana has not arise as such as conclusion. It leads to the more important situation that they all misunderstood the original teaching of the Buddha. It is also instructive to note here that in the history of Buddhist thought, there has never been a Buddhist school that has openly acknowledged a theory of the self. There was one doctrine which every school was committed to define. It was the doctrine of non-self. Furthermore, every Buddhist school was very sensitive to the chain of the being, criticized as abhorrent some sort of sub-theory. At the same time, it is of course true that some Buddhist school may have developed certain theory which amounts to a various recognition of the self theory. For instance, the Vasa Buddha admits a sort of permanent self, neither identical, which no different from the mental state. However, what matters here is that the fact that the Vada Buddha themselves frequently defined that their theory was some kind of such theory in this discuss. Despite their potential and potential, they nonetheless come to be rather secondly refined to be other Buddhist heritage within our mind. Outsider masquerading as insider. The Buddha teaching on the theory of knowledge and jhana experience are two relevant right that should be examined yet in relation to the issue of the ourself. It is well known that Buddhism recognizes not only different middle knowledge but also different level of knowledge. Besides the already sensory knowledge indicated by such as cognitive thing as vijnana, bare awareness, and senya sensory perception, Buddhism speak of a higher non-sensuous knowledge indicated by such as cognitive thing as apanya, higher knowledge, patenya, comprehension knowledge, penya, wisdom, and inya. Honest as to me to knowledge, Buddhism recognizes not only sensory perception and indicates infinite but also extra sensory perception, which enables one to connect things that does not come within the new or already sensory knowledge. For our present purpose, we need not to get into the detail of the Buddhist understanding of the me and the level of knowledge. What matters here is the fact that although the Buddhism recognizes different means and levels of knowledge, it is never claimed that a phenomenon oversets the truth that transcending the American says, the forces become an object or suggest knowledge. If anything becomes the object or higher knowledge, it is the five aggregate that aggregate individuality and not an elusive such which transcend them. In final fact, one thing that runs throughout the Buddhist discourse is that it is the five aggregate that become an object or higher knowledge. The Buddhist teaching on jhana recognizes as an experience gained throughout the higher state of the mind, concentration and unification. The question that arises here is whether one who attains jhana gets a glimpse or hides his truth, such which was hidden to him during normal time. Can Chinese experience be interpreted as communion or absorption with a metaphysical reality? As Raniwe, Jnanaponika Theta observed, a fiat soul for the origin and persistence of beliefs and idea about itself, soul, God, or any other form of absolute entity, entity is misinterpreted meditate experience occurring in devotional, rupert, or mystic trance. Such experience is generally interpreted by them mystic or theoretical revelation or our union with Godhead or instinct for manifestation or man, truth, and eternal self. Thus, Buddhism does not interpret jhana experience in a mystical, metaphysical, or such is shown by Buddhist discourse whether the Varanima Saripura Naras is content here. The content of each jhana is full and itemized without leaving any research for any kind of mystical interpretation. What is significant is the observation made that the mental pattern of each jhana are set to rise in full awareness of meditator. Here, he is fully aware of them arising, the persistent and the passing away. Then he can to the conclusion that the mental pattern having not been can to be ahitu tabaita and having been done pass away hedo basta. It is the future of ourselves that similarly Saripura fully comprehend the constant or jhana experience. He does not get attached by them, nor does he get replaced by them, nor does he get attached to them or impressed by them without getting overwhelmed by them. He does come to the conclusion that there is a emancipation higher than that ati Uddana Nesta Banana. This account on the nature of jhana experience established three bases first. One is that its content can be fully analyzed without leaving any residue. The second is that it constitutes rise and vanquish in full knowledge of the meditator. The third is that the fact that it does not it itself constitute final emancipation. For according to Buddhism, the jhana's experience too is impermanent, nature and suspension, dukkha, and devote or itself, device or itself, another. Creation, Singara, and divinely rising, Resas Mobara. In final fact, Buddhism seems to be fully aware of the possibility of many misinterpretation jhana expedient on the basis of theological or metaphysical theory. This seems to be the reason why the meditation is advised to review the content of jhana's experience in the height of the three mark of phenomenal existence, Tiranaka as impermanent nature, ancestry, dukkha, and as revolt or a sustaining entity. At that. Another aspect that we need to consider here is Nibbana. Nibbana's experience thus is provide evidence for the belief in oneself for our present purpose. It is sufficient to refer here to the position of the Tathagata, one who has attained Nibbana in relation to the five aggregate khandha. In this connection, it is maintained that his Tathagata cannot be comprehensible either with reference to the five aggregates or without reference to them. The first show that the Tathagata does not identify himself with any of the five aggregates. The second show that he does not identify himself with anything outside the five aggregates. Something that's transcendent. As for example of ourselves, both mean that the Tathagata is free from all self-identification. Concluding remark. From what we had observed so far, it should become clear that if there is a doctrine which is unique to Buddhism, it is that doctrine of non-self. In final fact, from its very beginning, Buddhism was aware that the doctrine of non-self was not shared by any other contemporary religion or psychological system. That is clearly shown by the Tathagata, by the shorter discourse of the Lion Royal. Here it is said that there are four kinds of clinging to sin pressure, karma, upadana, clinging to speculative view of the nature of sex and the world, deity, upadana, clinging to rites and observance as a means to solution, silapatu prana, and clinging to a doctrine of sex, atta vada, upadana, to a view of truly existence. This discourse go on to say that there could not be other religion teach who will recognize only some of the four kinds of clinging, and that apart that they might teach the overcoming of the first three for all clinging. What they cannot teach because they have not comprehend this full answer is the overcoming or clinging to a rotten or self. For this, the last side of clinging is the Satana and more elevates or the great cruise. As clearly articulates here, the doctrine of non-self is the unique discourse of the Buddhas and the crucial doctrine that separates his own teaching from all other religious and psychological systems, as Pranavya Bhikkhu Nyanamoli said. The title given to this discourse, namely the shorter discourse on the Lion Royal, is clearly intended to show that the Buddha proclamation of the non-self doctrine is broad and tenacious as a beautiful lion. Lion royals in the spiritual domain. When it comes to other Buddhist teaching, the teaching on impermanence, suffering, karmas, reverse, causality, and so forth. We find Buddhism making reference to fearless teaching on the fear of other religious teachers. However, what is more important to note here is that when it comes to the doctrine or nonsense, we do not find similar reference to fear doctrine. They also show that the doctrine or nonsense was not shared in any form by other religious teachers during the time of the Buddha. The statue of the doctrine or nonsense at the more crucial, thus separates Buddhism from all other religions, came to be recognized in the subsequent school of Buddhist thought as well. Acharya Yosamitra, a celebrity of the Sutratika school, critically asserted that in the whole world there is no other teacher who proclaimed as doctrine or nonsense. Again, Acharya Bodhagata, the Theravadin commentator, said that the character of impermanent nature and suffering, dukkha, are known whether Buddhists arise or not, but that's all nonsense. Nada is not known unless there is a Buddha. For the knowledge or it is the proven or known, but a Buddha. The plus one is some instant, sure, non-substance, throughout impermanence, in some throughout suffering, and in some throughout both. Why is that? Why it does? Why impermanence and suffering are both evident, nonsense is not evident, and apparent impermanent hard to illustrate, and hard to describe. The doctrine or nonsense, which some validation and interpretation is commonly accepted by all schools of Buddhist thought, and it is on this basis, therefore, that we can speak of the transcendental unity of Buddhism. If there is a doctrine which is commonly accepted by all schools of Buddhist thought, it is the doctrine of nonsense. If there is a doctrine on the basis on which we can speak on the transcendental unity of Buddhism, it is none other than the doctrine of nonsense. If there is any doctrine which, while unity of Buddhist school, separates Buddhism from all other religion and philosopher, it is again that doctrine or nonsense. Finally, if there is any doctrine on the basis of which Buddhism seeks to explain the psychological genus or speculative and theoretical view, it is also the Buddhist doctrine or nonsense. Which is more radical about the Buddhist doctrine or nonsense is that it is throughout this doctrine the Buddhism sect is allied from the two positional worldview or spiritual eternalism and materialist nihilism. The doctrine or nonsense has also provided a new dimension to the concept of the human personality and lays the foundation for a physical within the physics. If by physics is understood as sustaining energy within the resonance of our mind. As Edward Consul observed, the specific contribution of bodies to religion throughout lying in the instances of the doctrine or nonsense. In finding out fact, Buddhism other contribution to psychology, philosophy, and this has all followed from the doctrine of nature. If Buddhists follow philosophy, you why the idea of is that energy is a raw assertion. Buddhist psychology show how it can to be. If Buddhists at this show how it can be called can be cut it off. Buddhism Buddhism's go, which is nirvana, show the final state where it is completely eliminated.
Chapter 5. The analysis of mind. The world is led around by mind. By mind is regrets here and there. Mind is the one thing that has all under its control. The above quoting demonstrates how Buddhists bring into focus the primacy and centrality of mind as the primary reality of human existence, the ever-changing sequence of thoughts, feelings, and passions, which comprise our conscious experience, which is emphasized, however, is not only a grasping right of the nature of the mind in bondage, but more importantly, that immense potential is to the mind possessed to realize higher cognitive consciousness as well as to elevate itself to the higher level of freedom. If boundaries mean to can under control of one's own mind, freedom means to have a mind under one's own control. Both boundaries and freedom have mind as the common law. To free the mind from boundaries, it is necessary to develop the mind. To develop the mind is necessary to know the mind. Here, we find that the rationale for Buddhists in preoccupation with psychology and for the relevance of psychology to Buddhism as a religion. The basic principle of Buddhist analysis of mind. The Buddhist analysis is analysis of mind as we find in the Pali discourses recognize three basic principles. First is the divine rising of consciousness expressed in the well-known saying. Apart from cognition, there is no rising of consciousness. Consciousness is not some kind of potentiality residing in the heart and becoming actualized on different occasions. Nor is it a state energy that runs along and wanders without undergoing any change. Consciousness always springs at a reality. What is that reality? Is it the case of unconsciousness? For example, I'm the visual organ, which is impermanent, changing and becoming other and visible objects, which are impermanent, changing and becoming other, such as that transcend fragment duality or invisible object, which is impermanent, changing and becoming other. Unconsciousness too is impermanent. For how could unconsciousness arise by dependent on impermanent conditions? The permanent, the coincident, faculty, concurrence, samvadas, and confluence. Sambhava or the three factors with the eye object and eye consciousness, which is core sensory contact. And though other mental phenomena arising in consequence are also impermanent, yet as the function of two spirits produce fire. In the same way, consciousness springs up from the integration or some organ which send objects depending on whether it's framed at in response to the eye or any other sent organ. It is named accordingly. From the body perspective, therefore, to have a consciousness means to be aware on to be aware of an object. It is of course true that consciousness needs many factors for it to rise. Nonetheless, it is to the object that more importance is given. As such, in the Theravada Buddhist exegesis, consciousness can to be defined as that which grasps its object. This definition is intended to refute the notion that consciousness can arise without an object. The second basic principle of the early Buddhist analysis of mind is that consciousness does not exist as an isolated phenomenon. It always exists in conjunction with the other four aggregates into which the living being is always nalas. Here, the Buddha declares, Bhikkhu, thus someone might say, apart from corporeality, apart from feeling, apart from perception, apart from volitional formation, I will make known the coming and going of consciousness, its passing with and reverse, its growth, increase, and expansion. That is impossible. Although consciousness cannot be separate from the other four aggregates, nevertheless it can be distinguished from them. Indeed, it is this circumstance that makes it possible to define and describe consciousness as well as the other four aggregates. The third basic principle of the early Buddhist analysis of mind is the reciprocal dependence of consciousness. On the one hand, and materiality, nama, rupa, on the other. Here, materiality denotes five mental factors, namely feeling, perception, volition, sensory, contact, and attention. They are the five basic non-rational mental factors that naturally arise together with varied types of consciousness. Such a factor come within the aggregates of feeling, perception, and mental formation. This idea behind this cognitive recognition is that as the knowing or awareness of an object, consciousness cannot arise as a solitary condition. It may be similarly accommodates at less five mental factors that exercise more speculates that in depth at all cognition. Materiality in the compound mentality and materiality denote the four great elements of matter, Mahabhuta, along with the matter that is dependent on them, Upadatupa. It refers to the origin of organized matter as for example the five